Okay, today we're going to be harvesting some honey here from this hive. And the question we often get is, when is the honey ready to harvest? And you can see here that these two middle frames are nice and full. They've filled up all the cells and they've got their wax capping down the edge here. In fact, this hive is getting so full that they're starting to put wax everywhere, even on the side windows, which is amazing. So what we're going to do is make some space in this hive, give the bees some more space to keep storing honey, and they can keep foraging and the whole process can continue. So what we're going to do is just get this tube here and put it in the bottom. Today is our beginner beekeeping Q&A, so it's dedicated to any question you want to ask. No such thing as a silly question. Get in there and ask, don't be shy, and that's the way you learn. So here we go, we're going to put this key here. There's two slots at the top and it goes right in the top, and then we're simply going to turn it. There we go. And you can watch what happens here. If you visualize the end here, you can see that the honey is draining out of these cells and into the tube and right out into the jar. And you can actually watch that process happen. So I'm going to put the key in further now, and depending on how tough the bees have waxed it up, this one's actually quite easy. I can turn the key quite easy, but sometimes it's very firm and it's worth doing it in segments. Look at that, beautiful, the honey pouring out into the jar. There's no filtering needed. It's ready for the table. Trough area, it just seems to float to the top, so it's not a big deal. Basically, you can harvest without all of that long intensive process and filtering and etc. that it used to be. So if you've got questions, put them in the comments below. Also let us know whereabouts in the world you're tuning in from. Mel is here today. She's going to help us harvest some honey, and she's my daughter and she's wearing her bear suit today, so this honey bear just might be stealing honey in a second. We've got to keep an eye on her. Okay, look at that. It's a beautiful thing. We're also going to do so we'll get inside a hive, and that's a great thing to be involved in, looking in at what the bees are doing and really learning as you go. I'm going to have to taste some of this honey because this looks like a very fresh new flavour. We don't often get this light one coming in, so here we go. Oh wow, it's as I thought it was. I could start to smell the floral essences of the wild quince or Goya. It's a local rainforest tree, and it has this really, it's almost an intense floral flavour, and it's really, really something. And it's so nice to have those really amazing floral flavours as well in your collection of honeys to talk about. The beautiful thing is you get different flavours of honey from one frame to the next, and different colours of honey. And this one is one of my favourite. It's not everybody's favourite because it's quite strong in flavour, but what do you think of that honey, Mella? Any good? Well, she pretty much likes any honey. She's grown up around beehives, around honey. She's not in her little beekeeping suit, but if you're new to beekeeping and you're still getting used to the hive and your bees and still getting to learn about, that's actually a type of fly here that gives you a little bite. Make sure you exercise caution and you don't bring your children really close to the hive till you're comfortable that the bees are. So beautiful. It's a wonderful thing just to watch that golden honey come out. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. We'll get to answering.
Yes, see to this. Amanda's asking, can you collect wax from the flow hives?
You can collect wax. Now, basically in the bottom box here, it's wax and wood in a conventional way. So you can take frames bottom box and collect honeycomb, and you could crush and strain or crush it with your hands and collect that wax, make candles, etc. Another thing you can do is under the roof here, there's a little plug in the inner cover. You can take that out and put a container over the top of that hole and let the bees build their wax comb up there as well. It can be a bit of fun. You can collect some wax, collect some honeycomb, or you can put a whole nother box on top. I'll just show you that now in the inner cover there. So you'll be taking that out and putting a container. You need to get in your bee suit to do that. Okay, so we're having a little bit of trouble with the audio. Just bear with us and we'll hopefully get that rolling again.
Cedar Robert's asking, they have heather honey, which is that bush, I guess, heather, isn't it? And it's quite viscous. Do you think it'll still flow out of the super, the flow hive super?
Okay, so talking about a Thixotropic honey, so we have some species here that do that as well. We have the jellybush, which is in the family that often gets called Manuka, and if it's say 50% of that in the hive, then you'll find that it'll come out in these globules. If you get 100% of it, sometimes it actually won't come out. So you could run into the situation, if you have a really monofloral source of Thixotropic honey, that it gets jammed in the frames just like it does in any kind of harvesting of frames. So it's not a problem that's only with flow hives. It's across any type of trying to get honey out of frames when you've got a Thixotropic honey in there. It's unusual to get 100% though, because there's often lots of things flowering around, and we actually get very few customers complaining about Thixotropic honeys getting stuck in the frames. So you're probably unlikely to have that. If you get I actually really enjoy when those types of honeys come in, because you see the globules coming out and you know that that's got those medicinal properties that we have here from the Australian Manuka.
Fantastic. Sorry, Cedar. Oh, my screen's just frozen. Cedar, we've got a comment coming in from someone, I'm not exactly sure where, Colombia, and they have Africanized bees, and they're quite aggressive, and just wondering, can they use them in the flow hive, and would they make the same quality and amount of honey that the European bees do?
I believe we do have beekeepers keeping bees. Bear in mind that there's some aggressive traits there, as you've said, that I'm no expert in, so you'll need to seek knowledge from your local beekeepers on that side of things. But as far as putting honey in the flow frames, yes, they will.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. Cedar, how long should you let the bees settle into the brood box before installing the flow super?
So when you let your bees build up in the brood box, you've got wax frames and you've got wooden frames, wax and wood frames in the bottom, and you just want to make sure they've drawn all of the frames out, which drawn means they've comb inside the frame, and they've got that in every frame in the brood box, and the bees are nice and full. That's the time when you can put your super on. If you put it on early, it's no big deal unless you're in a colder climate or you're still getting quite cold nights, in which case it just makes it a bit harder for the bees to keep that space warm for their brood nest. So if you put it on a bit early, you can take it off again. You might get a bit impatient waiting if you put your box on early as well.
Great. And Cedar, Rob's in Orange in New South Wales, here in Australia. Just wondering, do you need to clean anything in the flow hive after you've harvested your honey?
So you generally don't need to clean anything. We've designed this leak back point, we call it, where the last remaining honey will go back into the hive, and I'll show you that now just by taking out this, if you can get the camera in there. See how there's a little gap? The some but